We're going to keep on taking a look at the Selihah elements of Yom Kippur, and last time we looked at Slach lanu avinu ki chatanu, mechal lanu malkeinu ki fashanu, and we were noticing the sort of progression between Slach and Mechal, forgive and pardon, which was also associated with the progression between Avinu and Malkeinu, our father, our parent versus our king, and Chatanu and Pashanu, where Chet seems to be less severe, associated with the parent, less severe than the king, where you have your crimes and you need a king to pardon you as opposed to just forgive you. So that's one way to read the line that comes up over and over again in Slichot of Yom Kippur and in this whole month. And we saw the Rambam, who was sort of, essentially saying that the parent metaphor works until it doesn't, but once you've sinned a certain level, then you're out of the parent metaphor because children, you're no longer considered a child, and then you're sort of moving into the realm of the king. But then we saw that was really only Rebbe Yehuda's opinion, and Rebbe Meir has a different opinion, which is that you're always going to be considered a child of God, no matter what, and bring some other proofs around that. Today, I want to take a look at the word Michal, which we've been translating as pardon, and just to note that, again, in the way that we've been reading these lines, it's not just a synonym for Slicha, for Slach, but actually is its own separate universe of conceptually. So again, the line that we're examining here, Slach lanu avinu ki chatanu, mechal lanu malkeinu ki fashanu, and then you have the ABBA structure. So the BA comes ki mochel v'soleach. So Slach is A and mechal is B. Then you've got mochel B and soleach A. Again, you could look at these as synonyms. We're choosing not to, following the interpretive tradition. That sort of takes every word as significant. And the question is, what is mechal? What does it mean? We translate it here as pardon. What does it mean to pardon? And how is that different from forgive, from slach? I should note, we didn't say this, we were looking at slach last week, but slach, as it appears in the Bible, is only a divine activity. That is to say, even though in modern Hebrew you could say like slachli or slicha, humans say that all the time. In the Bible, only God can give slicha, and therefore has sort of some special role in the divine forgiveness play. But Michal, as we're going to see, does not actually even appear in the Bible, and therefore we're going to have to try to figure out what it means. So just to show you another place in which this is going to show up, on Yom Kippur, has one blessing in the middle of the Amidah, which is the blessing of the day, Kedushat Hayom, and we'll see that Mochel shows up there in a prominent position. Eloheinu ve'Elokei Avotenu, Michal la'avonotenu b'Yom HaKippurim hazeh. That's the beginning of the paragraph that's going to lead us to the blessing of the day. So God and God of our ancestors, pardon, Michal, pardon our sins this Yom Kippur. And then you have Mechei v'ha'aver psha'enu mineged einecha. Mechei means to erase, which is also related to the Hebrew word limchok. So you have these three words that both start off with memchet. Mechal, we're translating as pardon. Mechei is to wipe away, and then we don't have it in this line, but we'll have it other places. Yom Kippur. Mechok is to erase. And they may seem to be playing around with each other. In other words, what does it mean to pardon? It means to completely wipe away, as if it was never there. And then we get the blessing of the day of Yom Kippur, Baruch atah Hashem, Melech mochel v'soleach, God who again pardons and forgives, like we had above in our Slach lanu line. La'avonotenu v'la'avonot amod beit Yisrael u'ma'avir ashmotenu, and passes over, or something with passing, passes one, maybe one over the other, but seems to ignore our guilt every year. Melech al kol haaretz mekadesh Yisrael v'yom HaKippurim, king of over the whole earth, sanctifier of Israel, and Yom Kippurim. That you might recognize from Rosh Hashanah. So you can see it's sort of like a mishmash bracha. Here you got a few terms that are thrown into this sentence, but one of the key ones is mochel, is to pardon. Okay, so the word mechilah, mochel, mechal is going to be showing up throughout Yom Kippur. So what does it mean? Well, one of the places in which we get the proof text for this request is from a set of verses that uses the word macha, to wipe away. So there might be some sort of connection between machal and macha. You can even just hear in the letters themselves and in the two-root theory of Hebrew, in which perhaps the original language only had 2 letters in every root and not 3. So maybe machal and macha and machak are all in the same category, meaning to, as we said, wipe away or get rid of. But one of the proofs of Mechala Avonotenu is the following verse from Isaiah. Zechor Ela Yaakov Yisrael. Remember these things, O Jacob, for you, Israel, are my servant, ki avdi ata. I fashioned you. You are my servant, O Israel. Never forget me. Machiti cha'av pishaecha. I will wipe away your sins like a cloud. Ka'av, like a beam. Psha'echa v'cha'anan chatotecha. And like another word for cloud, like mist, your transgressions, shuva elai ki galticha. Come back to me, for I will redeem you. Okay, so this is one of the proof text verses that we're using in that little paragraph on Yom Kippur in the ellipsis here. As it says, this is one of the as it says. Okay, so we can see it's gonna say as it says, I wipe away, even though it might also imply the as it says is related to machal, for pardon. Okay, so again, pardon and wiping away. Now, what's striking, as we mentioned, is that machal is not actually found in the Bible at all. What's striking about this is almost every line and certainly every word of the machzor of the Sidur is taken from biblical language. And so when you find a word that is not taken from biblical language, that also sort of has to pick up your radar. Why would the rabbinic authors of this prayer employ a word that does not come from the Bible? Meaning there's something so important about the word machal that they sort of violate their own rule of all the language has to come from the Bible in order to stick it in. We got a commentary of Yaakov Emden in the 18th century who's just spelling this out for us. He says, Michal, himila Talmudit. It's a Talmudic word. Ein la real b'mikra. It has no analog in the Bible. It has no appearance in the Bible. And behu, what's the translation? V'inyan hamichia v'amichika legamre yoter me'aslicha. So this is sort of hearkening back to the Rambam we saw on Friday. Whatever it is, it's more powerful than slicha, right? So that when I say slach lanu, michal lanu, the michal is sort of ramping it up to the next level. Slach is like up here, but michal is the next level up. Somehow it's related to michia, moche, and michika, mochek, that we've been sort of theorizing as well. So that's Yaakov Emden's sort of commentary on the word michal, and just noting again that it doesn't come in the Bible. So I wanted to look at two places where it does come in the Talmud, just to show that this is in fact a radical concept, because to erase and completely disregard a crime doesn't sound very fair. And we saw back on Thursday the idea of emet, the idea of truth being overwhelmed by the other terms of God's attributes, by rachamim and chesed and chen, because if all you had was truth, none of us would survive. But just to show how radical and crazy it is to have a concept in which you do something and then it's completely wiped off the books, as opposed to any other process of remitting that sin. Okay, so let's take a look. Actually, recently came in Daf Yomi, if those of you who are keeping up with Daf Yomi in Ketubot. So we have a Mishnah who we have the following situation. Misha mate, someone who died, biniach isha ubalcho v'yorshin, someone who died and they are in debt, and they're in debt to 3 categories of people. One is his wife, one is a creditor, he took out a loan and the creditor is whom he owes money to, and the other are the Yorshim, the other heirs beyond his wife. Okay, so he has three categories of people that he owes money to. And he actually has an asset that another party is holding on to. So this third party has an asset, and that asset is owed to three categories of people. In the bond world, this is the flow of funds. Who gets the asset first is the question of the Mishnah. Everybody agrees that the asset has to go to somebody, but who gets it first? We have three categories of people who might be getting it. So Rabbi Tarfon says, "Yinatnu la koshel shebahem." Rabbi Tarfon says, "Give it to the weakest of them, the one in most need of the money." That's one interpretation of what that means. But whatever it is, it's some preferential treatment to the three categories of creditors, in which it's not ordinal, it's simply the one who needs it the most. Rabbi Akiva counters and says, Ein merachamin badin. We have no mercy when it comes to judgment, when it comes to law. Okay, now, what is Rabbi Akiva doing? Is it because he is a heartless person who has no access to mercy? Not exactly. He's just being fair. Right? There are certain ways in which you can have something owed to you, and it doesn't matter who needs the money most. What matters is either who took out the loan first, or who has some other prior claim on the money outside of your own need. So Rabbi Akiva is just simply saying it's only fair to treat the creditors not by their need, but by the normal way that you would pay out the asset. Ein merachamin badin. We have no mercy indeed. Just to show us that a completely, real situation in which you have judges trying to do something fairly are saying you're not going to show favor in a judgment case because that wouldn't be fair. And yet, that is exactly what we're asking for on Yom Kippur. We're exactly asking for rachamim in the face of Din. We're asking for God to move from the seat of Din to the seat of Rachamim. And just again, to show you in a rabbinic context in which the rabbis were judges, how radical it is that you could have a concept that simply wipes away a process of Din, wipes away the normal judgment process. We'll look at one other example, comes from the next page in the Talmud, which I think is a crazy situation. Hamocher shtar chov l'chaveiro, b'chazar mechalo, machul. Now here we see our word machal, okay, and how it's going to be used in the Talmud. Again, we have an asset. Somebody sells their promissory note to someone else, okay? So I am owed money by person A. I then sell the promissory note in which I am owed that money to person B, okay? Person A used to owe me money. Now they owe person B money because I sold them the promissory note, the bond. Then I decide to michal person A. I decide to forgive the loan of person A. Person A borrowed the money from me. I'm forgiving the loan. Sounds fine, except what about person B? He's holding the promissory note that he bought. And all of a sudden, person A doesn't owe any more money. So is that fair? The Talmud then decides, machul. Yes, they are pardoned. Actually, there is no need to pay back the money, even though person B bought the promissory note. So if you're person B, you're saying this is completely unfair. And if you're person A, you're saying, I can't believe my luck that I was forgiven from a debt that I didn't even owe to my friend anymore. My friend sold the debt and I owed it to a third party and I don't have to pay him either. And that is the concept of machal, of mehilah. It's as crazy as saying somebody who owed money to somebody else now is completely forgiven that debt, even if that debt transferred to a third party who had no right to forgive him or didn't forgive him. And that's what we're asking for on Yom Kippur. So the idea of mehilah is in fact conceptually beyond Selihah in the sense that it's not fair. It's a totally unfair resolution of our guilt. And nevertheless, that's what we're asking for on Yom Kippur. Okay, we're going to do one more morning of learning tomorrow. See you then.